Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Business of Track and Field. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we have Sanya Richards-Ross, three-time Olympian, and I don't know, she wears like 97 hats. So I thought it'd be really cool to have Sanya on tonight because she wears 97 hats and does them all well. But in addition to that, during her career, she had a pretty significant entourage of people, and not very many track and field have gone on to hire the support staff that she did. And I think we're always kind of piecemealing a team together and hoping for the best. But I thought that would be great for Sanya to talk about the investment she made in all these different people and how she felt like that paid off. And it's not to say that you have to do it exactly the same way she did it, but it might be able to show you the value in really investing in the different members of your staff and making sure that they're ready, willing and able to perform to support you. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Sanya. If you guys have questions, you can jump in at any point. She's going to talk a little bit, I guess, her overall story and about her entourage, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. Well, thank you, Lauren. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on. I'm sorry I had a little bit of technical difficulties, but no, I think, Lauren is right. I think ultimately when you become a professional, anything, you have to start seeing yourself, you have to start seeing that as a business. And when you're an athlete, you are your business. And just like any business that has a marketing team, finance department, HR, all of these things, I think when you really sit down and see yourself as a professional, you too need to evaluate what you need in order to be at your best. And so, it didn't happen overnight. I won't say that. Immediately I knew, okay, I need all these people, but I think over time, and after evaluating what I needed, I think I was able to put together a pretty good team to be successful. And yeah, it was a big investment, of course, financially it was an investment, but also time and research to find the right people who I thought would help me to grow. So I guess if I can just break down a little bit of what team I assembled to reach, my Olympic goals. Of course, first I had a great coach, in Coach Clyde Hart, who helped Michael Johnson achieve success in the 400. I think it's important when you're selecting a coach, to find someone who has a good track record, and then of course somebody that you get along with. And Coach Hart was just perfect for me. I'm really high strung and a little crazy at times, and he's really calm. And his calming demeanor really helped me during competitions to stay in the moment and to execute. So he was, of course, the rock and the pillar of my team. And then I had a strength coach.
Can you talk a little bit about how you found Coach Hart, like how you decided to leave your college coach and how you ended up at Coach Hart? Did you interview other coaches, et cetera?
Right. Well, you're going to have to read the book to hear the really nitty gritty about the book, Chasing Grace, coming out soon. But, it was a little bit tricky when I left Texas and left Coach Bev Kearney, but I was really grateful. So what happened was, and I guess I might have been able to start with my parents as the first part of my team, but my father was the one who did a lot of research, and he always knew who the coaches were and who helped other athletes to do great things. And so when I decided to leave Coach Kearney, I had a short list of great coaches that I wanted to potentially work with. And to be honest, I really wanted to stay in Texas because my honey was here, Ross was here, and my sister was here. And, I just started to see myself, living here and loved it here. So I made a 90-minute trip down to Waco, Texas, and interviewed Coach Hart. And I liked him from the moment I met him. And, we hit it off, and I started training immediately with him. So it really was the support of my father, who knew his rich history and helped to educate me on it as well, that kind of got the ball rolling. And then I contacted him and went down there, had a meeting, and, told him my goals, and he was on board. And that's how I got started with Coach Hart. And then, the second coach, and equally as important, was my strength coach, Coach Bruce Johnson. And I think, for me, some track coaches can double as strength coaches. But, Coach Hart, being an older coach, honestly didn't have the background in strength training. To be honest, I feel like strength training has developed so much in the last 15, 20 years. And Coach Hart's been coaching for 50 years. So, I think for me, it was really important to have somebody who was younger, who had evolved and grown a lot in strength training. And so I stayed with my college coach, Coach Bruce Johnson, for my entire career. And he was phenomenal. What I love about him the most was, and like Coach Hart, they were always growing, always open to my suggestions. kept me in the loop as far as what we were doing. If anything was going to change, we discussed it. And I like that. I liked being in the know and feeling very confident in my coaches. And then the other members of my team included my mom and dad. So I had a unique, opportunity to work with my mom and dad. So my dad always loved sports and really did all the work to learn about the sport. And I think he was able to really help me develop. And my mom was a travel agent for most of her life. And she was always into fitness and travel. And so she was my first strength coach, when I was really young. But, when you think about what you need from an agent, you just need someone who can get you from point A to point B, and someone who's knowledgeable enough about the sport to negotiate what you should earn. And so my dad had that element of knowing, what other athletes were doing and what he thought I was worth. And my mom was able to get me around and travel with me. So that just, ended up being a major blessing to have my parents as my managers. And then I got a really awesome and competent sports psychologist. And, I think just like you think about having a track coach, I think it's important to have a mind coach. And I started working with Dr. Corley down in Waco in 2009 and stayed with him for my entire career. And he really helped me a lot because, being an elite athlete is really difficult. And I think it's just as much mental as it is physical. And so you need that support from someone who can help you to pull the best out of you when you're under the most stress and tension. So that was my sports psychologist. And then I had a full-time physio that lived in Zurich, Switzerland. And his name was Adric Monting. And I won't say was, he's still alive and kicking. So his name is Adric Monting. And he was great. I was very, very fortunate to work with him because, you guys know it's just tough being an athlete, and being able to get treatment constantly was kind of like prehab instead of rehab. And so he was an integral part of my team. And then I had a marketing agency that I worked with. And I think they were crucial. I think a lot of times the good thing is my parents, they never tried or pretended to be someone that they weren't. And of course, they did not have the skill set to help me to market and position myself outside of the sport. So I think that makes it easy because a lot of times the agents pretend like they can do those things, or, they include it in the package, but they don't have the experience. And so, it was easy for me to say, hey, my parents have never done that. Let me look beyond them and find an agency that will help to align me with companies that, are perfect to work with. And I'm just going to say here a little bit, because I think it's important to, it's not just about the marketing company. You too have to do some work. And, I think you have to know what your brand is, what you represent, and you have to push your agent. For me, it was like, hey, this is what I want to accomplish this year. Here are how many sponsors I'd like to have. Here's what I'm willing to do. Here's my availability. And I stayed on top of them. And I think that also helped. And then I had a financial person who worked with me for the first couple of years of my career to help me with budgeting and all of those things. And now I'm working with Lauren, which is awesome. But yeah, having somebody, because, at the end of the day, no matter how skilled we are at these things, some of us might be finance majors or whatever, but it's hard to do those things and focus on training at the highest level. So it's important to have people around you who that's their sole focus, who care about you and love you and want to see you win. So I think I've talked enough for the first part. I am happy to take some questions and kind of riff some more. But, ultimately, I think, like I said, it's all about you thinking about yourself as a business and what you need to be successful in making that investment, whether it's financial or time or, doing the research, whatever it is, you got to make that investment in yourself in order to be successful.
All right. Without further ado, you guys have questions? I've got a couple questions if no one has questions. I want to give you guys the opportunity to speak first.
I got a question.
Go for it. Is that Jay?
That's Jared. How you doing, Sanya? Team Philly represent.
I'm good. Why can't I see anybody else, Benzo? I can only see you.
Because they all have their.
I just turned my camera on.
Here we go.
Oh yeah, now I can see you guys. Okay, cool.
It's dinner time.
We're not gonna judge you. Stuff in your mouth. Is it pizza?
But no, how were you able to balance pursuing all that side stuff and continue to do track as your main focus and then still perform well? I know a lot of times you have a lot of things on your plate, something starts to slip, and especially in something. And I don't. How did you manage all that?
It's a really good question, and it wasn't always easy. I definitely noticed at times in my career when I, started to lose that balance and I wasn't performing as well as I had in the past. But I think that what you have to do is, first of all, you got to have good people around you, and then you have to trust them. So I think the best time for me is like in the off season, as I'm planning everything, I am like 100% engaged in what my goals are off the track and on the track. And then, as the season progresses, I feel like I have to offload some of those things off of myself and, trust that my mom will follow up on these things, trust that my marketing team is doing their job so that I can rest easy and just train. But it's not easy. And, there's no magic formula to figuring out when am I doing too much off the track and, when am I not doing enough? Because the truth is, no matter if you want to face it now or in 5 years or 6 years, it's not going to last forever. And so the one thing you don't want to do is ever be locked in a box where people only see you in one dimension. You have to at some point be seen outside of that, and people have to see you as, a commentator or whatever in order for you to get opportunities off the track. So, I think at some point there is a little bit of give and take, and sometimes you are going to, slip a little bit in one area to gain in another, but you got to figure out when that time is right. And especially if you can offload it to other people, I think that also helps.
Okay. I just have one follow-up question. When in your career did you start pursuing all these extra side gigs?
Well, I started working with my marketing team in 2007. So I started professionally in 2004. So I made the Olympic team in 2004, signed a contract. 2005 was my first year. 2006, I had an amazing season, was World Athlete of the Year, broke the American record. And so after that year, things just kind of started to take off, and I actually kind of needed people to support me. And so in 2006, I got a marketing team. And the best thing about a marketing team, guys, is you don't pay them unless they make you money. So that's one of the best investments you can make. If you find a marketing agency who wants to work with you, you don't pay them a stipend. You pay a publicist, which is a little bit different. But, so I got with them, and of course, they were incentivized to work hard for me because they made money. So that's what I want to say. I started to, think through those types of things. And then as I got older and older, I felt like I did more and more, because I too also had that itch to explore other things. But, I think in 2006 was when I started, and then, after 2012, it just got worse. I started doing more and more crazy stuff. But yeah, I would say probably started in 2006.
Okay. Cool. And then one last follow-up question, sorry. You just noted that after you broke the American record in 2006 is when you started to do it. I don't know, I'm not close to an American record yet, but if I were to follow in your footsteps, I guess, how would I do it? I guess, would you have done it before you did the American record? Or it just seems that like your high success kind of threw you to the limelight, and then you took advantage of that as well.
Right. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that you guys are competing at a different time than I was. It's funny to say that 10 years ago, things were so different, but there was no social media. There was no way for me to brand myself outside of the available channels that were there. So, if it wasn't for Nike or NBC or the existing, opportunities, I couldn't do anything. So I think had I been competing, had my career started right now, I would absolutely have started sooner, because you can brand yourself, and you can start doing some things that get you noticed outside of, like I said, it was just like, okay, are you the face of Nike or not? Are you, does NBC want to interview you or not? You couldn't do anything else. So yeah, absolutely. I think I would start to think through what my brand is. I think when you're thinking about your brand, you want to be completely authentic, because people can see through the bull crap. And I think that, a lot of times people are trying to like follow in one lane, but all of us have our own unique perspectives, and people relate to that. So I think you got to think through, what is it that I like to do, and how can I explore that on social media and in other ways so that I can connect to an audience, whether I'm winning yet or not. But I mean, ultimately, let's be honest. I mean, if you're running really well, then that just helps, because then you have that along with this amazing brand. So I think in the beginning, you got to focus more on the competition and trying to get there. And then, you're kind of building alongside, and then at some point, hopefully it evens out and you're able to do both at a high level.
That makes sense. Thank you.
If you were to, Sanya, if you were to, I guess, narrow it down, or maybe like, what would you start off with? I mean, like right now I have a coach and I have like a physical therapist that I kind of work with a bit, but if I'm looking at adding like a sports psychologist or marketing or something like that, like is there an order you think that'd be a good idea to do that? Or if you were to limit,
absolutely.
I obviously don't have unlimited funds. I can only start so small.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, if I were to narrow it down to what I think is most important first is you got to compete well. So I think having a sports psychologist is, supremely important. I wish I would have gotten one sooner. I would have gotten a sports psychologist in 2005 had I known how much it would benefit me. So I think, especially if you're training really well and sometimes struggling in competition, a sports psychologist really helps you to get over that hump. And so I would definitely prioritize that. I think if the platform is sports, then you want to make sure you're excelling in sports first, and then you start looking towards the other things that you think will help you. And then, no bias to Lauren, but I think that having my husband and I had a financial plan from the very beginning, because no matter how much or how little you make, if you're not able to save it and keep it, then, all of this is for nothing, So it's like, I think that's also someone that I would try to have in my corner as soon as possible, helping me to invest the money that I am making, so that way I can parlay it in the future. So I think those would be the two places that I would start. And then I would just be creative on my own initially with my social media and marketing strategies until I get to a place where, people are looking for me and I don't have to work so hard because, I'm a wanted commodity.
I got you. Okay. Thanks.
I think that was a perfect segue. I got like 15 questions written down now. One of them was about the amount of time that you spend on your brand, Sanya, and the number of tweets you're sending out, that you're getting in just the right position to take the right picture. That's time and that's commitment on your part. That's no one else doing that.
Right.
That can do that social media but you. So can you talk a little bit about the commitment and the creativity that comes with that, and just the investment you've made in building your brand and spending the time doing that? I think people kind of take that for granted.
Yeah, no, that's a huge part of my job. And my husband gets to know it. I'm like, babe, I got to get this picture. He's like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm getting paid off my social media, like good money off my social media. So it's a job. So I think, like you said, it's really a commitment. And I think the first step for starting out a successful social media campaign for yourself is identifying your brand. So I'll never forget, I had lunch with this guy, Kevin Lyles. He was the president of Def Jam, and now he has his own record company. And he asked me, what's your brand? And I was like, rambling on and on. He's like, no, you got to narrow that down to three things that you connect with, three things that I see every time I see you post or I see you. And I thought, okay, wow, it's a great challenge for me. And I went on and I said, okay, what are the three things that are important to me? And the first one's love. So my family, my husband, my faith, that's most important to me. And then I love fashion and beauty. And so I incorporated that into my brand. And, oh my God, and excellence, right? Excellence is the third one, is really working hard and trying to achieve greatness in everything that I do. So those are the three kind of tenets that I've built my brand on. And the most rewarding thing, Lauren, was probably about 2 years ago. I was sitting with this woman and she literally regurgitated those three things to me. I didn't say them to her. I don't go on my social media and say love, excellence, and fashion. And, and she was like, I love following you because I love your relationship. I love how much you're into fashion. I love how you strive for excellence. And I was with my mom like, it's working, So I think that's the first step, is to identify at least three things that are important to you. And then every time you post and every time you're out there representing yourself, those things have to be apparent, because then you get the brands that also have those same tenets, like the Coca-Colas and the BPs, whatever the brand is, that see that consistency and want to partner with you. So I think that's the first thing. And then it's time, and it doesn't happen overnight. You may have to post for 5, 6, 7, 8 months until finally something hits and people are like, oh my God, like, I think about Andrew Weeding, who I love to follow because he's so funny, and his skits are like next level. But so I know he takes the time to do them, but that's what it takes. He's being authentic, he's being honest, and it's fun to watch. And I think that's what makes a successful social media brand.
Perfect. If anyone else has a question, jump in. Could you talk a little bit more about the reason that you started working with Dr. Corley? Like you added him to your team. Like most athletes think, I'm a sports person, I just need to get my mind right. And, like how were you before and what brought you to kind of seek him out and start working?
Well, in 2008, when I was favored to win the Olympics and I didn't, Coach Hart actually was like, "Son, I think you should look into seeing a sports psychologist." And there was a lot going on in 2008, but I thought it wouldn't hurt. And so in going into 2009 season, I met with him all summer, leading into the winter and the fall, into the summer season. And I was undefeated in 2009 and won my first world championship title in 2009. So, and then I had tremendous success after that with him. I had some injuries and stuff that, you can't get around those things. But in 2012, I'll never forget standing on the track and when they announced Christina Rubu of Great Britain, who was the defending Olympic champion, and the stadium erupted. Like, if it wasn't for Dr. Corley telling me, look, there's going to be something that's going to knock you off your block and we're going to use that as fuel, that would have really rattled me because I didn't expect it, didn't anticipate it. So, having someone who prepares you in that way and, helps you to like figure out, okay, how do I stay in the moment? How do I get out of my own way? And I'm so grateful that I wish I told Coach, I'm like, why didn't you suggest this sooner? But that was the kind of turning point for me was the bronze medal in 2008.
Perfect. Other questions?
So back to Entourage, about that, I know you've had a lot of success. How, when you got to that success, how were you able to filter through who were actually good people to have on your crew? Because a lot of people were coming out. How'd you filter through the people?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And that's really hard because everybody wants to sell you a dream, right? You're going to be the next this, you're going to be the next that. And just give me this 2,000 hours a month or whatever, and I can make you this and that. And it's hard. You're going to sometimes make the wrong choices because, there's a part of you too that wants that and sees yourself as that person. And so it wasn't easy. And I think for me, it was sometimes and it was hard for me to give up control because I love to be in control, but letting other people also filter. So my mom, who is a great judge of character, sometimes I would let her come to the interview or take the interview. Because, you're gung-ho, you're excited, you want to say yes because you want that. You want what they're telling you that you can get and do. But sometimes your mom is like, no, son, that's foolishness. Still a silly dream. Forget about it. And then you got to trust that person, And so I think it's about, and then sometimes it's just instinct and sometimes you're going to make mistakes. But I think the most important thing that I've learned is, if someone's asking you for a tremendous amount of money, upfront to do something that's really hard to accomplish, I would always say, veer away from that person. I love people who are on my team who only make money when I make money, point blank. If I'm not making money, why should you make money? And so that was kind of the rule of thumb. I did pay a publicist and still pay a publicist a little bit for, I understand their services. They don't get directly paid from getting me on people.com or whatever. But there's value to that. So you have to just, evaluate those types of people along the way. But having people help you vet through it and not being so eager to do or say what they're doing. I think that also helps you to kind of temper it. You can always also have people on a trial basis. So, okay, sounds good. Can we do a 3-month trial? You don't want to sign on to a year contract and you don't know the person or what they bring to the table.
Cool. Good deal.
I think another good point, maybe, something you can expand on, Sanya, is, how all these different people got paid. Like you mentioned a pretty large team, and I know your mom and your dad are members of that team, your sisters, your hairstylist, et cetera. Like how did, were those also paid members of your team? And like you said, was everybody on a sort of percentage of what you make, or did you salary all these people, or were they just free because they love you?
I wish. No. No, I paid my mom and dad. They were like any agent manager, and it was their full-time job. So, of course, I had to pay them because they wouldn't have been able to survive without it. So my mom and dad were on a salary per se, but we know agents get paid a percentage. So it's not like I was paying them regardless if I got paid, they got paid when I got paid. My sister's the only one who didn't take any payment from me, did my hair for love. You know, so I didn't pay my sister. She wasn't team SRR, but everyone else was salaried. I mean, I paid my strength coach a salary, paid my physio a salary. Coach Hart was also percentage based, so he was, you know, also getting paid. And everybody else, like my publicist, she was getting paid, and my marketing team got money when they got me money. So yeah, everyone. And you know, that was one of the tough parts, Lauren, was, you know, you're especially when you're young, right? You hear I'm making all this money in my early part of my career, and I'm living off of this phantom number that's like, a millionaire. And then when you break it down, you're making like 30 to 40%, if that, of your money. You know, by the time you pay taxes and tithe and everyone else, it's a much smaller number than what you're actually generating. I think that's why it's important to have a financial person to help you navigate that, because, you know, it's easy to get caught up in that stuff and spend all your money. And, you know, then, like I said, it's not worth it in the end because you put so much in and have so little to show for it.
I think it's also too, like, it speaks to the value of running yourself as a business and the difference of being, you know, a person who wants to collect all the money for themselves versus a person who's going to run themselves as a business. A business is always going to have overhead. So, you know, whether you're a virtual company, like for instance, I don't have an office, so I don't have that kind of overhead, but I have different softwares I need to pay for. I have marketing, all these different other things. And so as athletes, we sometimes see like, okay, I am the product. I am the person who earned this contract. So this is my money. And only person I got to pay is this agent because he had to give me the contract in the first place. And, you know, we kind of get comfortable with that one person and then we don't want to expand beyond. And sometimes, you know, if you're working with your college coach initially, you know, that person might be doing it for free because they know you have a smaller contact or because you already have a great relationship with them. But it's important for us as athletes to realize that, you know, when you step to the next level, that you take that coach to the next level with you and that you compensate them accordingly for their services. Just because they were doing it for a little bit less before doesn't mean you should continue to pay them that for your career if your earnings and continue to grow.
I got to get my card's about to die. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. And then also, like you said, all these other pieces, there's a timing for when you add these other pieces to the puzzle, but like knowing and understanding that these are worthwhile investments and that these people also need to do this for a living so that they can value your time and showing up and producing a product for you versus just always doing it out of the kindness of your heart. Sometimes you're going to get what you pay for. And if you're getting something for free, then, you know, you're going to get what you get for free services sort of thing.
Okay. What's a good way of knowing when to phase these things in?
That was my next question too.
What is it, me, Lauren, or you?
I'll let you answer it. It's your show. I kind of just stole it for a second, but
when is a good time to what?
To phase the different people into your career. When is it time to kind of?
You didn't start off with all these 7 different people. Like you started with like a coach and then added a strength coach and like at what rate did you add them in? Like how did you know? Start getting a financial person? When did you start marketing? Like that didn't all come right away. It came over time. So how long did it take, I guess?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's no magic formula. I think for me, like you said, I started with my parents, thank God, at my corner, and I had my 2 coaches. And then I'll be honest, so I didn't even think about having a physical therapist full time. Lauren can attest to this. At the time when we were competing in like 05, 06, Nike provided us with a fantastic physical therapist. And I kind of got spoiled and got used to having that. And when they took it away because of some legal issues, I wanted to find somebody for myself because I thought it did give me an edge. So that's why I phased in a physical therapist. And then, you know, also I was getting paid really well. So I had the resources at the time to say, you know, okay, what can I do to get an edge? And, you know, I felt like those things helped me to get the edge. And like I said, I got my marketing team right after I was the World Athlete of the Year. So, you know, there were always kind of triggers that made me think, okay, what do I need to do now to kind of keep going to the next level? Because I always wanted to be, you know, one of the faces of the sport. And I wanted to make money. I didn't want to always only make money through running on the track. You know, I wanted to figure out how could I make money without having to work so hard. So, you know, it was always in the back of my mind. And so I just kept adding those people on as the resources were there. And as I felt like the timing was right because my career was kind of exploding. Don't know if that really helps, but that's what the reality is.
No, that's a good answer. That's cool.
Can you talk a little bit more about the idea, like you were talking about how agents sometimes, pretend that they do the marketing. I think that was something that a lot of athletes that I interacted with bumped into. And so your track and field agent, like you said, you have your manager, you have your agent, then you have your marketing team, and they're all different. And, what I experienced was when I asked about marketing, it sounded as if that was like included as part of what your track and field agent does.
Yeah.
And then what I learned later on is that they will take what opportunities come their way, sort of thing. So like you said, when you're a hot commodity and someone's beating down the door for you, they will manage that for you and negotiate on your behalf, but they're not actively seeking marketing opportunities for you. So, what does that look like, I guess, in the difference between your agent, your track and field agent, your PR person, and then I guess your publicist or
marketing team.
Right.
Yeah, like Lauren said, I think that, most agents are happy to just kind of, manage what comes because of what you're doing on the track. And I think that especially now, it's so easy to connect with managers and publicists and, marketing companies who are at the same level that you are and who are out there that know of opportunities that aren't track related. So I think a lot of the track agents know, yes, of the endemic sponsors. Okay, yes, you can get me a Nike contract. Okay, yes, AT&T's have come around in 4 years. But what about those smaller companies that have money and are willing to pay for you to post something once a month? And so if you're not connected to the brands that know, so like I'll tell you, CAA is the company I work with. And I mean, I can't tell you how many opportunities come to them because they're in that space. Companies reach out to them looking for an African-American female athlete who is X, and boom, you fit the bill, you get the job. So I think that, you got to find companies that are like that who are willing to help you find opportunities outside of track and field and outside of the obvious gets that you can get. And I think the other thing that an athlete needs to be aware of is just because you win an Olympic title or win the world title does not mean that you're going to get people knocking your door down or you're going to become the face of Nike. Like, you have to be primed and ready for that opportunity as well. So, it kind of goes both ways. But ultimately, I think if you look around the sport of track and field, most of the agents are just really good track agents. And I say that like kind of, but they're certainly not experts in marketing. And so you got to, go out and do some research and find someone who's really good at that. And then a publicist is totally different than a marketing agent. A publicist is someone who is trying to figure out how to get you in magazines and on covers in local markets and stuff like that. So people start to recognize your name. And then, of course, when your name starts to have a buzz, then it kind of also goes hand in hand with marketing companies wanting to pay you to use your image and likeness.
Let me ask, how do you balance that between the shoe contract companies and other companies that will be willing to, have you market their product? I mean, are there restrictions from the shoe companies that you can't do certain things?
Yeah, I mean, I think over time, I think we've all fought so hard that now the contracts aren't as restricting as they once were. But yeah, Nike's contracts are, don't allow you to do eyewear or certain things. And sometimes there are opportunities for eyewear or for watches or things that, the companies aren't hardcore promoting. Like, you're not, I'm not on an eyewear billboard, so why can't I go out and go talk to Oakley? Or, you're not using me in a watch campaign, why can't I go talk to Rolex or whoever? So, I think it's about being smart when you're negotiating to carve out those things if you think there are opportunities there. But to be honest, there's so many things now outside of, and they call it athleisure wear now because Nike's crossing over. So they kind of want to make sure you're not doing like stuff that, jogging suits, because they do that as well. But there's so many things outside of that you can capitalize on that Nike doesn't interfere with, that I think there's tons of opportunities to make money outside of just being with, the Nikes of the world.
Cool.
Others? Kara, Scott, Channing? You guys have been quiet.
This is Kara. I was walking the dog. I'm sorry. So it was really windy and I was out of breath. I live in Colorado, but I'm home now. So,
nice.
Hi, Sanya. Kara Winger, I throw the javelin.
Nice.
So my question, I guess I have two. First of all, how much do you feel like dating and then marrying Ross influenced like your perspective on the professionalism of track and field? Was that something that was, I guess catalyzed by a suggestion from someone in the track and field community, or kind of like the training that he was going through at the same time for football?
I missed the last part of the question. I caught the first part, but you said what was the last part?
Do you feel like your perspective on the professionalism of track and field and you as a business was influenced a lot by Erin's football experience, or was that something that was like influenced through the track and field community and connections you had there?
Right. That's a really good question. And, I guess a little bit of both. I think, of course, being exposed to the NFL and how they did their business and how, tight everything was and professional it was, I think that absolutely inspired me to take my career more as a business as opposed to just like, when you're in college having fun and, just going through the motions. I think that did influence me a little bit. But, I'll be honest, I think that I always kind of had this desire. Lauren can tell you, we just came out of college, we started working with a guy who, I don't know if Lauren wants to tell the story, but it was a big mess. But, I knew early on that I wanted to pursue opportunities on and off the track. And so, and to be honest, I thought where you were going to go with the question too was, did I feel like Ross being a part of my story also helped to, put me in a unique position? I absolutely do think so. I think that having that NFL connection and, people getting excited when I got engaged and all that stuff, but I think it's how you use it. I think we all have that. We all have these stories and unique perspectives that we need to figure out, how can I parlay this into something else? And, whether that was me going on the NFL Network through my publicist, like saying, hey, like, why would they not want to see me? And it wasn't always that they came to me. Sometimes I had people go to them, but I just thought about ways that I could have that crossover and, use my love. I don't want to say to my advantage because it was never like for that reason, but just use my experiences to help me become a better professional athlete.
Yeah, and your technique is better than most of theirs anyway, so why would they not want to look at you run and stuff?
Exactly.
Love it. And I guess I want to support something you said about a sports psychologist, because I don't know if you remember this, but I saw you leaving the London Mall outside of the Olympic Village the night before your final to go stay with your family. And I was thinking about that. Like we had a hug and then you left and you were like going to be alone and with your family before your final, and then you won gold. And it was so cool to watch that in the stadium, knowing that you had prioritized your own mental health the night before. So it's neat to hear you talk about that and work with my own sports psychologist now and be really excited about that.
Awesome.
And here's something that I'm not necessarily in jeopardy of having happen to me as a female javelin thrower, but it's sort of a personal question about, we've talked about balance between all your different roles, but balance between maintaining your own personal life and something that's like private and feeling like your whole life is public. Is that something that you struggle with a little bit?
Not really.
Okay.
I actually, it's funny, we're all different. And I think for me, I've always loved and wanted to kind of be in the spotlight. And it's like few things that I would not share with the world. And, my perspective on that is, I've always felt very blessed. And I feel like, I just want to be used by God to help inspire other people. And so in that vein, I love sharing my life. And there have been a few things, of course, that, have been very private and close to my heart that I wouldn't share, and I don't. But for the most part, I've enjoyed being, as much of a public figure as a track star can be. And so, no, I don't really have that struggle too much. I know Lauren and I are very different. Lauren's one of my best friends, so I talk about her a lot. But, she's more private than I am. And, and so I think it's different personality types. But for me, it's okay. And I wanted to just kind of go back, Kara, to what you said about when I left the village. And I think that's important to talk about your mental health as an athlete. And I do remember our encounter. And, good luck this season. I'm cheering for you. But
thank you.
But yeah, so what Kara's talking about was one of the things that my sports psychologist helped me to realize was that sometimes being in the Olympic Village was like, it's like you're always on, it's like so much pressure. You're thinking about the race 24/7. And so in London, I stayed with my family every night before the 400, every round of the 400. So I could just let my hair down, not feel like I had to be on, but I could just be my fun loving self and pretend like I wasn't at the Olympics for a couple of days. And then when I got there, it was like, okay, now I turn on. And it really worked for me, but my sports psychologist helped me to realize that. So yeah, Kara, thanks for reminding me about that. But that's just another nod to having somebody who's helping you to figure out the physical part, the mental part of things, while your coach, of course, helping you with strategy and preparing you physically.
Thank you, Sanya.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I think I would speak a little bit about the idea, like you said, the different personalities. I thought it was a really good point. You said Sanya is very, very outgoing, and I'm more like the laid back kind of just cool, calm, and collected. And, I always kind of struggled with trying to figure out like what was the balance for me, because I knew I watched Sanya, I watched the things she was doing. And like you said, we kind of started at parallel points in our career where we both knew the importance of marketing and trying to get outside of the track and field world and outside of the box. And so we even had the same marketing person, like initially that wasn't a very good fit for either of us. Was kind of like a sham where, somebody pitched us something and we knew that this was an important thing to have. So we went ahead and got it. But it was one of those people that was just selling us something, didn't actually have the resume or the repertoire to be able to take us to the next level. And I think for me, that kind of like left a bad taste in my mouth. I did try a few other times, but for Sanya, like nothing was going to stop her in that respect. And so in building this team, and I can even think of another time I was going to ask you about like your process in finding Adric. But there, at the beginning of that, when we no longer had that physio and we all knew that it was an important thing to have, it was kind of like, do I want to make this investment or not? And it's the same thing. It's like, I look back on my career and I wish I would have invested because I made really good money, a little bit more in those things and those people instead of kind of like putting it together. And so when Sanya started to work with Adric, there was a series of kind of 2 or 3 people that we went through that summer, and we're kind of like talking about sharing the expense because, you had to pay for the travel, you had to pay for the hotel, in addition to pay them for their services. And, it's a big adjustment at 20 or 22 years old to, know that you have the money, but at the same time to, like you said, really know that it's a significant investment in yet another person. And so we started where we were all going to split it. And that same season, I got hurt. And so Sanya was like, hey, where'd everyone go? I think there was 3 of us, maybe 4 of us splitting it. And somebody like faded off into the sunset. I got hurt. And so it's kind of like calling like, hey, I kind of still want to pay my part, but I'm not going to be here. We're not going to the same races. And so I'm sure there was like a moment where Sanya's like, what the heck? Like we all had this like planned out. This is important to us. But I said, that's a pivot point for her where she said, this is important enough to me that I'm going to continue to travel this person. I'm going to pay this person. And, it's going to be exclusively my person going forward. So just, the difference in between her, I think I did make some sacrifices in my career. And there's some things that could have gone better if I had, dedicated myself to that investment. I think I was always on the line. I knew that it was important, but I never really jumped over the line and made that investment in myself. And I think that I did suffer toward the end of my career where there would have been opportunities that were available to me if I had, taken care of myself better on the front end. And then too, as it pertains to like your personal life, I am a lot more quiet and don't want everybody to know everything, but I also know the power of social media. And so it's like, once again, how do I balance like putting things out there? And it's so tedious for me to have to like make a post. And, I'm like, I'm trying to do better. Okay. Like, and it's not the worst thing in the world. And there's plenty of things to tweet about that are not pertaining to your personal life, but you have to have that natural knack. You have to want it and you have to put time aside. You have to be creative. And I think that's what we take for granted is how hard Sanya has worked to put in place. Like, okay, what's my strategy for this week? What things do I have coming up? And then make sure I stop and capture this picture. Whereas I just, keep walking out the stadium and get on the bus and I'm home and I'm like, oh, I didn't get a picture today. Oops. Oh, well. So just knowing who you are as well and being true to that, but also, knowing to invest in yourself so that you can reap the benefits of it.
Well, and defining, sorry, I'm just jumping in, but I like that because I'm more private too, and I married a guy who's especially private that doesn't necessarily want to be in all my posts, but finding your brand to be associated with companies that are maybe like a blog post with words rather than, you being put on the spot, or whatever. would be more in line. Awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. I think it's also too, if you love nature, if you love, taking pictures of those things. And I was sitting behind somebody the other day and my phone was dead, so I was being nosy and looking at her timeline, and I was like, man, we're so different. Like the pictures that she scrolled through. I think she must be an artistic person. We're so different than what my timeline looks like. So I think it's embracing those things and really just finding the things that you love and posting those things, or doing your blogs or whatever that's true to you, because there's so many people like all of us that we can connect to if we're authentic.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments, concerns? I know we got started a little bit late, so if anybody wants to stay on another 10 minutes, we're coming up on 8, so if you need to jump off, then go for it. But
Sanya, any advice you can give a parent of an up-and-coming possible superstar, teen hurdler, going forward? I know. Excuse me?
I said, yes, Mac Dad.
Okay.
Your name says Mac Dad. What were you going to say?
No, I'm sure you know the name if I mention her, but Sydney McLaughlin's my daughter, and we're just trying to figure this all out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I wanted to hear what you had to say, but we're at the point where everyone's coming after us and, trying to sway us one way or the other. Any advice that you would like to impart?
Yes, 100%. I'm really happy that you're on the call, and congratulations on Sydney's success. She's phenomenal. I follow her on social media. I think she's doing a really good job there too. I think she does just enough, and I like that as well. But if you want, I could so many things. But the first thing is, my honest opinion is, I'm happy she's going to go to college. I think that there is nothing like the college experience. I think she could do it. I can join a few athletes who could go pro early. Is she going pro, or she hasn't decided yet?
Not yet.
Okay, good. So yeah, I think going to college for at least 1 year will be so valuable to the longevity of her career that it's worth the wait. Because I think that winning is a habit. And I think that if she can go into college and dominate in college, she goes onto the professional circuit more confident and more prepared.
Right.
I think one of the things that people underestimate is how hard it is to be professional, because now, like when you go to college, your coach tells you what time you have practice. You have a schedule, you have weight training, so you start to get used to what it takes to compete at that level. But when you skip that phase, the girls on the professional level, it's no games. How you eat. So, it's a lot of parents, unfortunately, try to walk in the fantasy world, like, oh, my daughter is so good in high school. The times look great. She's going to come on the pros and just excel. And it's not that easy. And you can't get that year back. If you give up your eligibility, it's over for you. So the first bit of advice I would give you is have her stay in college for at least 1 year. It's going to be a great experience for her. She's committed to, what's the coach, that guy?
Floreal, Kentucky.
Floreal, he has tons of experience. That'll be a great place for her. So ideally, I would love to see her stay in. Whatever you guys decide is fine, but I think that's the first step. And then I think that you guys have to stay plugged in. My parents, even if she starts to say like, oh, no, you guys know her best. You guys know what makes her tick, what makes her, successful. So stay plugged in, go to all the meetings, talk to people like you're doing now. I'm happy for us to connect beyond this. I would love to help mentor you guys and mentor her. So that'd be a blessing for me. But do the research, Dad. Like, talk to people. Don't let people know who you are, and just listen to what people are saying, and really judge people's characters, and talk to the people who they don't work with anymore, because they're the ones who are going to probably tell you the truth.
Right.
So, a lot of...
It's kind of what I've done. As you know, I sat on the call and I just listened.
Yeah.
So what you're saying.
And that's the best strategy. I had no idea whose dad you were. I saw your name was Mac Dad, but I didn't know whose father you were. But that's the best thing to do, and just stay plugged in and support her. And I think on another note, it's about letting her lead as far as what it is she wants to accomplish, and then supporting her, which my dad always did for me. I always knew I wanted the Olympic champ, but it has to be my desire.
Right.
And then he everything that he could do to help me make that happen. So I'm super excited for you and for her. It's going to be an awesome journey. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of people, and you know, too many chefs in the kitchen ruin the dish. So you got to be careful that you don't get caught up with that and, you know, ruin a great thing. So we can talk there, but you know, I'm happy for you.
Thank you. Yeah, because we had you know, we've had a plan for a long time with her, and you know, everyone's telling us we're crazy for having her you know, run in high school now, still as a high schooler. She's a high schooler. She's 17 years old.
Yeah.
And they're telling us, oh, you're crazy to have her go to college. No, she needs that experience. But what people don't know is, like you're saying, we know her, and going to the Olympics was it was hard, and it
was tough. It's tough.
It's hard.
No joke.
It's no joke. And she needed this time to grow and to change, and the same with college, so that, you know, morph into the professional as opposed to just diving in. And so we've seen so many kids jump in and don't do well, and we don't want that for her.
Yeah, and the thing is, to be honest, if she's going to be a great professional, the opportunity will be there. It's not going to go anywhere. And I'm telling you, ask Lauren, we know college. For me, I'm so happy I went to UT for 2 years. And then I went for 2 years, and the next year I was the #1 quarter miler in the world. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, I wouldn't have been in 2003 or 4. It just wouldn't have happened. And the women who were running would have beat me so bad. I don't know if I would have been able to stick with it. Really, I mean, they were running 49s, and I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready. So, you know, so absolutely have her go through the phases, have her enjoy, because the professional circuit is hard, and it will take your joy away. And you don't want that for her. You want her to always love it. And, you know, I think if she has success in college, it breeds success and continues to help her to love it, which is most important.
All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Couple more minutes. Anybody else?
My son is kicking. He like,
Is it time to eat? I just have one more question about knowing your worth. You talked a little bit about like how your mom was your agent, and you know, she had to be able to figure out how to negotiate on your behalf. Do you have any tips for the athletes online about knowing your worth and how to kind of figure that out? Because it's such an objective or subjective thing. I don't know what's the proper term, but you know, there is no hard set number for you have this many medals, you've accomplished this, you get this much, and not feeling like you competed and enjoying like the process of like, I'm worth this much, I'm not coming to the race if it's not this much, or, you know, like not making it about the money, but knowing your worth.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. It's really tough in our sport too, because we're all like so tight-lipped about what we get paid. And so it's really hard to know, like, is a $20,000 appearance be appropriate for a 400-meter Olympic champion, you know? And so it's hard to really know. And so I think, you know, over time you start to kind of figure it out. You know, if you're able to talk to people, and if you're able to have good friends, like you know, with me, you, Lauren, Batman, all of us, and we shared, you know, like this means paying me $30,000, this is paying $50,000, $15,000, whatever. And then you're like, oh, well, if I'm not getting close to that, then you know, I'm not going to go. And I do think you got to be careful when you start to get a certain amount of money, not to take too much below that, because all the meet directors talk. So if you're used to getting 20,000 and you take 10 from somebody, you're in jeopardy of getting 10 the next time you go somewhere else, because they're going to say, well, you ran in Zurich for 10,000. Why should I pay you 20? So yeah, there's sometimes where you do have to hold out of certain meets and stand your ground. And you are going to be navigating the whole time. You know, sometimes you are going to take too little because people are just going to easily pay it. And then you're like, okay, no, next time I'm going to go up on that. But yeah, if you can have people who you can network with and talk to, that helps. But it's kind of a little bit, you know, it's a little bit of a guessing game, and they play hardball. But you know your worth, and you know what you can, you know what you can stay home for, and what you're like, I got to go eat, so I got to get this money. And then, you know, once you start running really well and you're winning lots of races, you know, there'll be somebody who offers you an amount, and you're like, oh, snap, I'm worth that much, you know, and then you kind of go from there. And try to keep the number up there, but you got to keep winning as well, because they're happy to lower that number too. So it's, you know, it's a little bit of a guessing game in our sport, because it's not like the NFL, like Kara was saying, where, you know, your first round pick, you know, you get 20 million or up. Like, we wish, you know, we had that transparency, but we don't.
Did you talk directly to the shoe companies when you did your contract, or you went through an agent, and the agent kind of mediated between you and the shoe company?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I had a really bad experience with my first contract. If I'm honest with you. I write about it in my book with Ronaldo Nehemiah. So initially my mom and dad were a big part of it. And then, I got an agent and, it wasn't what I hoped for. I was excluded from it and, it just wasn't good. But when my parents got on board and we renegotiated my contract a little bit later in my career, I got what I was worth and I was a big part of the conversation because my parents were doing it on my behalf. But if I were to give advice on that, it would be, to have a lawyer look over your contract and not have an agent tied to your contract if you can. Because, let's be honest, if you choose not to work with that agent again, they're tied to your contract for 4 to 5 years and you have to pay that person for the remainder of your contract. And the truth is what you really need, you need to know what you're worth, which is tough to know if you're not in community with the track world. But you also need to make sure that the terms are fair. And so I think a lawyer can do that. And then from there, you hire somebody to help you get you into track meets, and then you pay them for their work. So if I could do it all over again, that's what I would have done, because I was in a really bad situation with my first agent and paid him a lot of money in 2010 or whatever. I paid him a lot of money. And it was very disheartening for me because, it's hard for track athletes to make that kind of money. So, yeah. So, I would say, stay involved, Dad, and then, decide if you want to have an agent who you think they're really helping. Yes. But if not, get a lawyer and just get it done that way and then bring an agent on to help get you into meet.
Gotcha.
I know I broke a few agents' hearts when they watch this, but it's the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to navigate because, like I said, we've got everybody coming at us one by one. It's just like, What do you do? So we're learning. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course, you're welcome.
Anybody else? Final questions, comments, concerns? We're very fortunate to have Sanya here tonight. So,
thank you, Andrew.
You didn't say anything. If either of you have something as one of the last remarks, maybe not. Oh, did I include everyone? No.
Here we go. Sorry, Sanya, how did you segue things into being a commentator?
Another good question. I always, so the funny thing is I was started running, my father, when I was in high school, actually had me watch my interviews. And he's like, you're talking too fast, you're not listening to the question. And so I feel like for my whole life, I've been grooming myself for my on-camera personality as well. And so it's something I always wanted to do. And I think that, there's a little bit of luck and, of course, blessings. But when in my final race, I actually said, I would love to be an NBC commentator, and they called me the next day.
Cool.
But it wasn't just that moment, right? Had I not planted the seeds, had they not seen me in that light, had I not, really thought through how I interviewed and did those things well, then they wouldn't have trusted me to go on air. So, I think it's about planting the seeds. It's no different than being an athlete. If you want to be great in the 400, I did 1,000 sit-ups every day. I ran stadium stairs. I put a lot of work in behind the scenes to win Olympic gold eventually. So yeah, I think it was, NBC, they wanted to have a woman in the booth for a long time. And I think that I just struck it at the right time and, was fortunate to say the right things and get the opportunity. So yeah, but it was definitely the groundwork that I think put me in that position.
Cool.
All right. Well, if there's nothing.
And Channing says working, but thank you all for the helpful information. You're welcome. We're happy to be on with you.
So if there's nothing.
Cool. Oh, I thought this was great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks for all your insight, both of you.
Yeah, thanks, Sanya.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sanya.
So as
and congratulations.
I'll stop the recording as a last. Oh, actually, I'll leave it on the recording in case there are other parents, since we have some parents joining us now. In June, we're going to do Business of Track and Field live at the USA Championships in Sacramento, and it's specifically for parents. So we won't meet as athletes, because obviously all the athletes will be there competing in the big motion. So share with other parents as you see fit, and of course, the email will go out, and all of you, if you know your parents are coming, feel free to invite them. There will be Business of Track and Field, most likely the Friday morning. More details will come, but start putting that in the back of your mind and in your head. We want to be able to share value with the parents that are new to the sport with stuff similar to like this. And we're going to have a panel of athletes that are going to participate there. So
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I hope it was helpful. And
Bye, everybody.
I'll talk to you
Bye. Thank you.
in July. Don't forget, if you have topics, to send them to me as well.
Okay, will do.
All right.
I'm sure the next time you have one, it'll be what I want to hear about.
What do you got about flattery?
No, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.